Nigeria's current Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, was widely reported as saying that the Senate of the 10th National Assembly would stop at nothing to approve every single request from President Bola Tinubu. Now, that statement probably set the tone for what has turned out to be by far the most cordial executive-legislature relationship in the history of Nigeria. The latest of such express approval of a presidential bill came this week when the National Assembly approved President Tinubu's tax reform bills, with Senator Akpabio saying it was necessary to do so in the interest of the country, despite facing stiff regional and political resistance. Well, we're now being joined by Ken Okolugbo, who is the special advisor and the consultant on communication and strategy to Senate President Godswill Akpabio. We're going to have a quick chat on legislative milestones after 2 years of the Tinubu presidency, the relationship between the executive and the legislature, and as well as how to balance the cooperation between the two arms of government and also subservience. Great to have you in the studio today. Thank you for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
On Newsday.
Yes.
All right, so we're talking about the Senate President. It's nearly 2 years since he's been in office. What would you highlight as the top 3 to 5 significant legislative milestones, in your opinion, that he has achieved within this period?
He will be 2 years on the 13th of June, which is just about a week from now. And basically, if you look at what has happened in the 10th Senate, when we did the statistics, we were really amazed. The milestones have been great, because if you look at the first, in 1999 to 2003, the first development commission we had was the Niger Delta Development Commission, which is today the NDDC. And it has had its ups and downs, but you agree with me that it has made a huge impact in the 9 states that it has overseen in terms of development. But in the 10th Senate, it will interest you to know that 5 development commissions have not only been passed into law, have been assented to by the president. And that is the Northwest Development Commission, very, very strategic, the North Central Development Commission, the Southwest Development Commission, the South-South Development Commission, and the Southeast Development Commission. All these have been passed into law. That is under the watch of Godswill Akpabio as the Senate President and also the Chairman of the National Assembly. But you see, one important thing you will also know is that, you know, we're facing a period where our budget is predicated on $75, which is a Brent crude, which is same as our Bonnie Light. And we're looking at an exchange rate of 1,500 to $1. And we're also looking at selling 2,060,000 barrels, which we're not doing now, obviously. And you all know that Brent crude is selling for less than $60. And the exchange rate is not even 1,500. So the budget it's an ambitious one, 55 trillion. And this tax bill that has been passed into law, despite the resistance from the regions, from the Nigerian Governors Forum, it was the Senate that first of all set the tone. That was way back in 2024, or November, and put it for, and passed it for second reading. Today we now have a tax bill that will give us an alternative source of income. Because if you look at it, agriculture and mining is not giving us exactly what we are supposed to have because of the farmer headers crisis and so many other issues that you have had. Our mainstay has still been oil, which is the mono economy we have practiced. So this tax bill is so significant because from the statistics and from the projections, it might be able to harness as much as 44 trillion in a year. And so people did not understand the importance of this tax bill. Don't forget that people that are earning $1 million and below, which is about the minimum wage, are exempted from tax. Even people who are in the military, so many other areas. But companies have been encouraged to pay more by reducing it to 25%, which is company income tax. So if you look at the overall, I've just given you the tax reform. I've talked about the 5 commissions. Now it will interest you to know that it was under his watch that the Data Protection Commission has been established. It's been passed into law. DICON, which is the defense industry, where you can manufacture defense equipment was also passed into law. And in over 769, in fact, by the time Senator Adaramodu reeled out the statistics of what the Senate has passed into law and what has been assented, over 25 assents have been gotten from the president. The statistics of 2 years is much more than what some of the other 8, maybe 9, if you may correct me, have achieved in 4 years. And so it has been a huge milestone for these 2 years. It's never been like that. And you see, when Akpabio says that it should never be a ruffle, let me use it in the local parlance between the executive and the legislature, that's not to say that they're just a rubber stamp. That's because there's an understanding. And that is why you can see that this amount of bills have come into play and have been passed into law. And these are life-touching bills, like the Minimum Wage Act. Remember that Minimum Wage Act was passed under a week because of the dire consequences of what the civil servants were going through, that 70,000 naira minimum wage. That was also passed under the 10th Assembly.
But if I may interrupt you here,
yes.
How life-touching really have these bills been? How well has it contributed to Nigeria's economic growth, to the business environment, human rights, social welfare? Can you give us, specific instances?
I just gave you the Minimum Wage Act. That puts money in the pocket of the people. You're reflating the economy. You're talking about an economy where people are now buying petrol for at least 880 naira away from 1,000 that it got to. By the time you put that money into the pockets of the people who are earning 30,000 naira, and by the time you are now exempting them from paying tax, you free up money for other things. Yes, it's not yet to huru. Don't get me wrong. 70,000 is not what we're expected to say you can take home and you're comfortable. But it's a huge mile from the 30,000 naira where we are coming from. If you look at the judiciary, for example, the judiciary wage and allowances bill was also passed into law. It was over 300% added to the judiciary. And their retirement age, most importantly, was raised to 70. Because you find out that a lot of judicial officers who are 65 just retire prematurely. As far as I'm concerned, when you're 65, you're retiring prematurely. Even though you're already become an elder or a senior citizen, your wisdom grow. And so they pushed it to 70 years. This is another major impact it has had on the society. These bills, these bills are bills that you look at and they just call them bills. But the impact, it goes beyond just the Federal Capital Territory or Nigeria as a whole. It goes through all the stratas of the nation, because you are supposed to do oversight functions. You're supposed to make laws. That's the basic responsibility of a senator. But by the time you affect the economy, just like what I told you about the budget, most people do not understand that the government is going through these very tight physical problems as at now. But by the time the tax bill is now signed into law, we now have an alternative source of income, then the borrowing will reduce. Because why we are having this problem is that we have not been a nation that has appreciated the need for paying tax. And that's why you're seeing the results that are happening in Abuja. The Federal Capital Territory budget was passed under 2 weeks. 1.4 trillion. And that's another milestone that was achieved. And you cannot deny the fact that we are seeing the effect of what people that are paying tax and the funds that are being generated in terms of IGR is doing in Abuja. So those bills are actually getting to the people. If it is Uhuru, no, it's not yet Uhuru. But I mean, there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's exactly what we're saying. In terms of the report card, in terms of bills that have come, over 280 resolutions have been passed. Over 769 bills have been received. They've had over 50 public outings. I mean, the statistics will all be reeled out during the public scorecard that will be given by the spokesperson of the Senate. But this is more like, giving an idea of what people do not know that has been happening in the Senate, that has been taking place under the watch of Senator Godswill Akpabio.
Yeah, and it's a very good summary. Thank you for that. In your opinion, what are the greatest challenges in managing the executive, legislative relationship in Nigeria, and how does Godswill Akpabio himself navigate some of these challenges as you've seen?
Yeah, but definitely there's challenges. You expect that some of the opposition members might not be very comfortable with the fact that they see that, there's a seeming beautiful relationship between Godswill Akpabio and Bola Ahmed Tinubu. In fact, some dare say that most of the reasons he has his attacks is because of his seemingly toeing to most of the things that the president is saying without challenging. But I'll tell you that there are a lot of decisions that go behind the scenes that they do not just agree on, but they judge and they agree. And by the time it's presented, it's seen that, oh no, there was no resistance. It doesn't have to be public resistance for you to be able to, build that relationship. At least I've reeled out most of what has been achieved because of that seemingly beautiful relationship that they have had.
So for the sake of time,
Yes.
this seemingly beautiful relationship, how has it contributed to promoting transparency and accountability in government, and how is the legislature performing its oversight function?
Yeah, transparency is very key. The anti-corruption, one of the things you notice that has been achieved is in oversight functions, there's been a beautiful relationship between the Senate and the EFCC. Under this EFCC, in the history of Nigeria, no agency has fought corruption like this present EFCC under President Tinubu. And without the National Assembly, Ola Olukayode will not be succeeding. It's because of because of the support he's getting from the National Assembly, and because of the oversight functions, and because of the information that he's getting from the National Assembly. I'll tell you that is why he has succeeded as much as he has succeeded. Don't forget that the EFCC, for now, is more like an IGRO. The NEL funds that was actually established that was passed into law by the Senate, the seed capital of 50 billion came from the EFCC. Even the consumer credit, the seed capital of 50 billion came from the EFCC. So most people might not know this fact, but all this will be done by next week when the spokesperson of the Senate reels out all the achievements.
We will surely be waiting for those announcements. Thank you so much for joining us here on Newsday.
Thank you for having me.
Okolugbo, the Special Advisor of Strategy to Senate President Godswill Akpabio.